Ever since my therapy dog Duke and I went viral on social media, I get asked all of the time, how do I volunteer with him at the hospital and how do I take him to the university? So in today's video, I wanted to answer a majority of the questions I get, and hopefully that helps you become a volunteer with your dog or cat or whatever animal you may have that you want to volunteer with. So in today's video, I want to talk about the why, how to find an organization, what it takes, what different types of opportunities there are, and the different types of volunteering with Duke, as well as the cost. And at the very end, if you stick around, I will talk about the things I wish I would have known before becoming a volunteer. So let's get into it. To start is to find the why you want to volunteer. So there are two reasons why I wanted to volunteer. One of the reasons was when I was in college, there was always therapy dogs during finals week. And I was always like, how the heck do you just bring a dog here and let all of us de-stress with these dogs? Like, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so I kind of had in the back of my mind, like, maybe one day I'll be able to do that. And then I kind of forgot about it. But when my mom was sick in the hospital, she had a therapy dog come visit her, and she would send me a picture and say, look who came to visit me, or are you jealous? Look who's here. And it was the therapy dog. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, that somebody struggling with cancer can be so excited to see just a cute little dog come visit them. And in 2017, my mom passed away. And so I knew that the next dog that I got, I wanted to be able to train them, to volunteer with them, and be able to kind of live on her legacy and bring them to the hospital or do whatever I can with them to make others happy. So that is what I did. I got my dog Duke when he was a puppy, and we just spent a lot of time with him when he was a puppy. We did a training course with him with other dogs, just like basic obedience of sit, stay, come, things like that, and just make sure he was really well socialized, so that way when he was old enough, we could go volunteer with him. And before I keep talking about this, I want to explain really quick the difference between a therapy dog and a service animal. So a therapy dog provides comfort to everybody, random strangers, me, just everybody around us, and that is not what service animals do, and that is not what emotional support animals do. And emotional support animals' primary job is to emotionally support their owner through companionship. So it's to support their owner, not to support me, not to support a random person at the grocery store, specifically their owner. And a service animal is specifically trained to assist an individual for a specific health need. I'm sure you already know this, but it is not okay to approach a service animal or an emotional support animal in public. But it is okay to approach a therapy animal like Duke in public. Now that you have your why as to why you want to volunteer, now you need to figure out how you can volunteer and find an organization to volunteer with. So the organization that I'm a part of is Intermountain Therapy Animals. They are primarily based out of Utah, Idaho, and Montana. There is another organization called Pet Partners, and I know for a fact that they have a chapter in Utah and they have a chapter in Las Vegas. And when you go on their website, it'll show you all the different areas that they have a chapter in, and I know they are a part of a lot more states than the Intermountain Therapy Animals is, but I know that they're not all across all 50 states. So the best way to do it is probably just a quick Google search, therapy animal or therapy volunteer animal work or something like that, and hopefully you can find something specific to your area. When searching for an organization, be sure to read as much as you can on their website all about the organization, because I was trying to be a part of the Pet Partners, so it's called Utah Pet Partners, and I paid to do like a training course and to make sure that it was fitting for me, and I passed the course and everything, and then I realized your dog could not be raw fed. And due to my dog's allergies, we feed him a raw diet and they do not allow that. So I stuck with Intermountain Therapy Animals, and they do allow your dog to be raw fed, or at the time my dog was applying, they did. I'm sure that's still how it is, but I can't speak for certain. So just make sure that everything aligns with you and your family and your pet. So after you find your organization, now you need to figure out what it actually takes to become a volunteer and for your pet to become a therapy animal. So this is based off my experience with Intermountain therapy animals. I'm sure every organization is different. I would imagine they would have similarities as to what you have to do to become a volunteer. So with Intermountain therapy animals, I had to complete a self-assessment, just how well I know my dog, how active is my dog, can I read my dog's body language pretty well, just things like that. And then I actually went in, I think you might be able to do it online now, I'm not so sure, but at the time when I was volunteering, probably about 3-ish years ago, give or take, my husband and I actually went in without our dog, and we watched these videos, just training courses on things to say, things not to say, what to do, what not to do. And then people would demonstrate certain things as well. And then we actually had to take a written test. It's basically just like what not to do or say to people in a hospital setting or personal life, just things like that. As well as if your dog were to do XYZ, how would you react, kind of thing, from what I remember. And then the next day, we actually brought our dog in and we had to do an assessment with him. So with that, our dog had to be able to sit, stay, come, be able to handle loud noises, and they would have like walkers in a hallway and just like people screaming or like someone kicking a trash can, just all different sorts of things that you may experience while you are in a hospital setting, as well as people would crowd around him and hug him, because if you are volunteering, maybe let's say at a university, people may crowd your dog and they just want to make sure that your dog responds okay to all of those things. Another thing they had us do is, I think there's either a toy or like a bowl of food, and our dog had to walk one way and another dog had to walk this way, and we just had to make sure that they didn't meet or bark at each other or anything like that, just because when you are volunteering there may be other animals around as well, and we just want to make sure that's not the time to play with other dogs, it's the time to be a therapy animal. Another thing they had us do is have our dog sit and stay with somebody else for about 3 or 4 minutes while we left the room, just to make sure they were able to stay with another person in case you needed to go to the bathroom or there were an emergency to happen, that they're okay being with another individual. Also, another thing that they had him do is to leave something on the ground. So I can't remember if it was a treat or a toy, but he had to leave it and not pick it up. So one of the things that we taught Duke when he was a puppy was the term leave it. So we would leave a treat or a toy in front of him and just tell him to leave it, and then when he was okay to get it, he was free or okay to get that treat or that toy. And that works really well, especially if you're in a hospital setting and maybe there's something on the ground that they shouldn't be sniffing or licking or trying to eat or something like that. You can simply just tell them to leave it and they will let it be. So I also wanted to look up the cost because I cannot remember from years ago, so I have it pulled up on my phone, and it says the team screening for you and your animal is $40, and I believe we did that for my husband and my dog and then me and my dog, so we didn't test together. So Duke went with me and then Duke went with my husband to do the testing. It also says the team training course, workshop or class series is $110. And then every year you have to renew as well, which I'm assuming is what that $110 is, but I could be wrong. And I know a majority of that is for the insurance, so that way if anything were to happen to you or your dog or somebody around you, you have that insurance with that organization. And our organization specifically is a non-profit organization, which I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of these are. So another thing of what it takes to become a therapy animal is you have to make sure that your dog has the proper vaccines, and with the organization that we're a part of, our dog actually had to get a fecal sample as well. So we had to take him to the vet, pay for that vet visit fee, make sure he was caught up on all his vaccines, make sure he didn't have anything wrong, come back with his fecal sample as well. So to sum up what it takes was we had to make sure our dog was trained. He had basic obedience, sit, stay, come, leave it. He can stay with somebody else for a certain amount of time, and he can be well with other dogs when walking past them. He doesn't get too excited or he doesn't get aggressive. and that he can handle the loud noises and the different things that may happen that he may not experience at his home every day. And he can handle people loving on him and kind of giving him a big group hug without him reacting in any negative way. And we had to make sure we did the course and took the tests we had to take and then pay the fees. And then that's kind of how we got started. So now that you found your organization and you know what it takes, now you need to know what kind of opportunities there are. So with our specific organization, you can do a read program, which is where you read with students. Some are at the library, they might have some at the school, and you just read with the student, you and your dog, and they have seen an improvement of children who are reading to the dog or with the dog, an improvement in their ability to be able to read or just their confidence and to be able to read, which is really awesome. That just didn't work with my schedule. It's usually right after school. I think some might be during school hours, but since I work, I wasn't off until 5 o'clock and I wasn't able to make that happen. You can also volunteer at the universities during finals week. And there was also an opportunity to go to like short-term rehab facilities. So if somebody broke their back or their leg or their arm or something, they go to a short-term rehab facility. You can go visit them as well. And then there's obviously also the hospital where you can volunteer. Where I live, there's not a whole ton of like weekend events or one-day events, but I know in northern Utah, where the organization is actually based out of, they have a lot more volunteering opportunities, which is really awesome. It's not like that so much where I live, but we also don't have as many volunteers here, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, as they do up north. Maybe one day we'll make the trip 4 hours to go volunteer, but for now we just stay down here. So what Duke and I started off doing is we actually, while we were in training, we went to the short-term rehab facility, and it was a lot of fun, but it was hard for Duke because he's a big dog and they were in beds, and so he couldn't really fit onto the bed, and because of his knee surgeries he couldn't really put his paws onto the bed, so they can kind of put their arm down to see him if they couldn't get out of the bed, but it was just a little difficult for him to actually be able to see the patient. So that's just one thing I would keep in mind when you're going around. Just find out what works best for you and your animal. So when I actually decided to make the leap to go volunteer inside of the hospital, it was actually when COVID was happening. And so I had to wait a little bit until they could start volunteering again. And then you had to go through training and everything with the hospital as well. So at our hospital specifically, you had to have the COVID vaccine as well as the flu shot, or you had to get a religious exemption or a health exemption of some sort. And then you also had to, for me, it was actually fairly easy. I just had to take this course online, and then I went in person and watched like a quick training video. And then they just gave me like direction as to, obviously I already kind of knew what to say and what not to say to patients. They just kind of made me familiar with the hospital, and then I have to wear a certain polo that correlates with the hospital. But the hospital pairs with Intermountain therapy animals, so I'm still a volunteer with Intermountain therapy animals, and then they just pair with the hospital for those insurance purposes. So that is basically everything. Now we know the why, how to find an organization, what it takes, and what kind of opportunities you may have. Now I kind of just wanted to talk really quickly about some of the things I wish I would have known before starting. One of the biggest things was the cost. I was just barely graduating college, I believe, or I was still in college. I can't remember. I think I had just graduated. And so the cost was a lot for me because I had to pay to go to the course, I had to pay to get my dog evaluated, and then I had to pay every year, and then I had to take my dog to the vet and pay the vet visit fee to get the fecal sample done. And then I'm pretty sure they only have to get one vaccine. I could be wrong. Maybe it's 2. And so all of that at once was just a lot for me. And so now that I only have to pay when we renew, that's a little better. I think every 3 years though, he does have to go to the vet and make sure he has to do a fecal sample. Again, I just did that, I think, this last year, and I've already done it once before. So that's just something to keep in mind, is the cost. Another thing is how emotionally exhausting it can be for you and your dog. So when I visit with Duke, I usually just do a max visit of an hour. Sometimes it's shorter than that, especially at the hospital. At the university, we may go like 2-ish hours. Wherever you go, the dogs and yourself consume a lot of everybody else's emotions and their vibes, and it can be really emotionally exhausting. Not that that's a bad thing, but just to keep that in mind, sometimes I go volunteer and then I'm kind of like wiped for the day, and so is Duke, and you just take in all of these emotions, whether you're at the hospital or the university. If you're at the university, people just miss their pets, or they just love dogs so much, so it makes them so happy but also so sad. If you're at the hospital, obvious reasons why it may be emotionally exhausting. I do want to mention, if you do volunteer at the hospital, you can totally visit the staff as well. Those are the main people we visit when we volunteer at the hospital. The staff love to see the dogs, and especially we started volunteering right after COVID. They were just all so exhausted, I feel like, emotionally and physically. And so they just love to be able to see a dog and pet a dog. And honestly, they just love it so much. So do the patients, but I just want to remind you, if you do this, don't forget to visit the staff as well, because at least at our hospital, you totally can, and they absolutely love it. Another thing I wish I would have known is how time-consuming and demanding it is. The organization I'm a part of, a lot of the people are retired, so they have a lot more time on their hands than I did as somebody who was in college or newly graduated. I can't really remember what stage of life I was in. I just remember it was so much for me. I couldn't go every week. It was more like every other week, or maybe just once a month. And I kind of felt pressured to do more than I could. And I think we just don't have a lot of volunteers, or at the time we didn't have a lot of volunteers down here either. So I just felt very overwhelmed with how much there was, and I didn't ever want to say no, because I knew it would be such a rewarding experience. But I just want to let you know that if you do get overwhelmed, it's okay to say no and to just do what is right for you and your pet. So the last thing is, I wish I would have known how rewarding it really is. So it's just kind of one of those things, you don't really know how great it is until you actually experience it. I think it is the coolest thing that I can bring my dog somewhere and share him with the world, because we all think our pet is the best. And you're not wrong, but I think it is so awesome to be able to take Duke into the hospital and see all these people smile and laugh, and whatever it may be, just make them so happy. Or if we go to the university and people are crying, but in a good way, or they're just so excited to see a dog, I just think it is so awesome and so rewarding. The reason why I love volunteering at the hospital is because I can basically just go whenever I want. I don't have to set a schedule with a particular facility or anything like that. So at the hospital, I can just go whenever I want. I was trying to go like a specific day of the week every week, so that way people would have like something to look forward to in a sense. But sometimes life just gets crazy, so I kind of just go whenever I have time, and people love it. That is it. I hope I answered a majority of your questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in a comment down below, and I will try to answer them through a comment, and maybe other people can read it and learn from that as well. Or you can shoot me a message on Instagram or send me an email, whatever works best for you. If I need to make another video to go on more in depth, I can do that as well. But I just thought that this would be a good start to answer a majority of the questions that I get, because I get so many of the same question almost every single day. So I thought it would just be easier to direct people here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new here and you liked this video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to go follow Duke on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, all the things. And if you start volunteering with your dog, you'll have to let us know how you love it, and be sure to send me some photos of them as well. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.